Hello and welcome, and today I will be showing you a build that I'm going to be doing. It is for my parents, and yeah, so I thought I'd show you a kind of an in-depth tutorial on how to build a computer. It is one of the old style motherboards and doesn't have the new Serial ATA connectors, but the principle is the same, so I thought I'd show you two anyway. I will be doing a written review with some pictures, and yeah, so check that out as well. I thought I'd just do a written review just so if this video was too quick for you or something like that, you could check out the written review. So yeah, we have all of our parts laid out here. On the far left we have the motherboard, obviously, as you can see. In the middle we have the DVD burner and writer, the 2 sticks of RAM which are laid up against the hard drive, and on the right of the screen we have the power supply, and the little kind of yellowy thing is the processor, and obviously in the background you can see is the inside of the case. So yeah, let's get started. I'll start off with the motherboard. Right, so we are back over the motherboard, processor and the RAM. The way you put together a computer is literally entirely up to you. It's just order of preference really, whichever way you find it easiest to put it together. As you can see, the layout is probably completely different to the, well, no, actually I know it's completely different to the new style motherboards. If I was looking at it the right way up, which I'm currently not, because the I/O shield here and the input and outputs need to be on this side for put it in the case, but even if I was looking at it the right way, the processor socket would be in the middle, surrounded by the heat sinks. The RAM slots would be up the top here, and the PCSI slots, which are these little 2 things here, and you'll probably have PCI Expresses on any new boards, would be down here where the input output shield is, and the input output shield would be up here. So it's all in a completely wrong position, but as I said, it's an old style board, so it doesn't really make much difference, but the principles are the same. Once you find the slots, which obviously are pretty simple to find anyway, then it's the same principle as any old or new style ones. So yeah, obviously we have the processor here, which is upside down currently because we have the little pins on the socket as well that we don't want to muck up, and the RAM, or the DIMMs, whatever you want to call it. So first of all, what I like to do is install the processor, because that is usually the hardest thing to do as it's not as delicate. So we'll get up close and personal and we'll do that then. You'll find with even the newer models of the motherboards that you still have the same lever here, so you don't need to actually press down on anything. So basically what you need to do is there'll be a little latch. You will need to pull on the little lever, pull it out, and it'll come up like so. You can leave that just dangling here, and you'll have a little latch as well that you then push, or you can pull. Either way, it doesn't really make much difference. There's a little latch here that I can just push up, or I can drag it from here, but this one's so much just simpler to pull it up like that and then leave it over the side like that. And as you can see, there are little kind of pins, little kind of pins that are very, very, very tiny. I'm not sure the camera's going to focus this this close up. Oh, it has done, not very well, but they're tiny little golden pins that you can see. They're incredibly small, and these go into the tiny little ridges and holes in the inside of the processor. So basically what needs to be done is never touch the processor on this side, because it's never good. So what I tend to do is just hold it from the other side, and then if I just twist it round, oh, just my books fell off there. If I just twist it round and I'm holding it from this side, you can see that in the one of the little corners there is a little arrow. I'll just wait for the camera to focus again. Okay, it's not going to. You can see a little kind of yellow golden arrow kind of thing, and it has a little ridge just there that you also may not be able to see either. But on the socket itself there is a little ridge just about here. I think my oh yeah, there we go, it's focusing just there, which fits in with the ridge just there. So what you need to do is line that up properly so those two match. You can just study the processor and the socket just for a minute, just to see that you're getting everything lined up well, and just drop it in basically. As I said, it has a zero insertion force method, so basically what you need to do is once you've lined it up correctly, and you'll know if you've lined it up incorrectly because it won't go in properly. But then what you just need to do is make sure that the lip bits are going to fit in, and I am confident that that is going to happen. And then what you need to do is then just drop it in. Don't try and push on any of the sides. You can just push it in a little bit in the middle just to make sure that it's down, and you'll know if it's not. And as you can see on both sides, it is fitted into the little ridges and the bumps that it has, so it's in the right place. And then all you need to do is just close the little latch that's on top, and then the little lever, just push down and just slot it underneath, and as you can see we have the CPU mounted. So this is the trickiest bit, as it requires very delicate hands, so if you're a little bit shaky, I wouldn't suggest doing this, but yeah, that's the hardest part. So now we will move on to the RAM that we have here, and this is probably the easiest part to do. So yeah, let's move on to the RAM. Right, as you can see with the RAM, there's a golden strip going along the bottom, and that's the indication of which way you put it down. It has a little ridge in it, and the socket has a little ridge in it as well. With newer models, this ridge will be offset slightly to the left or to the right, so you can only put it in one way. With this RAM, I know that it goes in facing this way towards me. With new models, it will be offset, so you don't have to know this. But basically what you just need to do is you just need to slot it in. I usually do one side at a time, so you just slot that in there and slot it in there. Make sure the ridge is in, and then just push down and you'll hear a click. There's one, and then push down on the other side, and there's the second one, and the RAM is in. So do the same with the second one. Obviously make sure it's facing the right way. I know it is on this one. So if I just slot in the one side and then slot in the second side like so, and then just push down and it will clip in to the little hole there, and then clip in, and this thing will automatically move again. And then obviously just to take the RAM out, you just clip these back on either side and it will slip back down, but I don't want to do that, so I just push that back in. And if they're not in properly, when you push it down, these will not lock in, but as you can see on both sides they have done, so we know that it is in properly. So this is the time that you may or may not want to install a graphics card. Obviously with mine I don't have one, it's integrated. So yeah, that's the motherboard done and dealt with, the hardest part. So we'll move on to the case and start installing some of the components. Right, so I'm going to be fitting the hard drive, which is just down here. I put the plastic cage on the outside. It's very simple, it just snaps on. But this is also very simple, as it can only go in one way, as the ridges on either side, as you can just see along there, only fit in one side in the panels there. Also, the serial ATA and the power connectors, which are just there, need to be visible. Oh, better not do that, because you need to route power from the power supply, which is going to be situated there, and the serial ATA SATA cable needs to be run along from the motherboard, which can be sat about there, to here. So you can't put it in the other way, because obviously if you put it in the wrong way, there's just the other side of the panel, so you won't be able to put the cable into it. So basically with this, all you need to do is just push it in once the cage is mounted, and it will just slide on the rails that are mounted on either side, and it will just slide all the way to the back, and it will clip into place as shown there. And these two little latches on the side will then hold it in, so it cannot be pulled back out again unless you push these together, and then you can pull it out. But I'm just going to leave that in there. So yeah, that is the hard drive mounted, with obviously easy access to the power and the serial ATA, which will run up along these little mounts across there and up to the power supply. I should also mention that obviously, as is this case, it comes with a fan, I've also shown, but also in there, that you might just not be able to see, I'll just turn the light on, is the USB front ports, which obviously come pre-connected. So if you're wondering what that is, then that's what that is. And it's an old school ribbon style cable, this little thing here that goes out of the optical drive bay just there, as it is a very old style computer case. So yeah, I'm going to be mounting the optical drive next, which is very simple, so let's get on to that. Right, so mounting optical drive is usually very simple. Some cases you have a little tab that just needs to be pushed out and you can push the optical drive in. With this one in particular, you have a little latch kind of type in that you just push in, and the top of the case, or the front of the case I should say, sorry, can then just be pulled out, and that gives you easy room to slot your optical drives in. This room has two on these little rails. So basically I just need to grab my optical drive, just grab it from there, and basically it's a front slotted optical drive. Most optical drives are, so you just need to find it on the right, put it on the right rails, and then you can just slot the optical drive in, and there we go, it's now fitted. Just need to put the screw in that goes just here. I don't know whether the camera will focus or not. There we go, it will just focus. And there was the hole, I just went past it. Just go, there it was. And there's the hole for the screw. So let me just go grab that and we'll fit that. Right, as you can see, I put the screw in. I haven't mastered screwing something in one-handed yet, so I'm not that pro at doing tutorials, as you can see. But yeah, we'll just screw that in. I don't think you really need a tutorial how to screw a screw in. I'm not insulting your intelligence that much. So then basically what you'll need to do is, with me obviously, I just need to slot in the front panel back in again. With you it should already be on anyway, so that's now in. The screw holds the optical drive in, so it can't be pushed in anymore and it can't be pushed out anymore. So yeah, we have the hard drive and the optical drive both mounted. So now it's just fitting the power supply, motherboard, and then hooking everything up. So I'll go get the power supply and we'll go from there. Okay, as I said before, my power supply, as you can see just here, is a top mounted power supply, so that's what these little latches things are for. They hook onto the little latches that are just on the top of the case, that you should be able to see just now if I move my lamp. These little things here, and what these do is hold it into place, and this little tab then stops it from falling forwards. So obviously with all the screwings that are in place afterwards and the various mounts that it sits on, it shouldn't fall. But obviously they changed it just because it's easier to do it on the bottom anyway, and obviously it's safer as well. So let me just find the little mount for you and we'll fit that. Right, so the power supply, obviously as I talked about just a minute ago, is mounted slightly different in some cases. In this one in particular it is different, as I said. So basically what it needs to do is you just need to line up the screws on the top, so the screws and the mounts on the top, and then just slot it backwards. This obviously requires me to have two hands because it's rather difficult, but what I just need to do here is just line up those, push it on the top and slide it backwards, and then it's all good. Right, so as you can see I just fitted the power supply, just hooks in, and now I'm just about to line up the holes. So as you can see at the top here we have 4 little holes that the power supply is then screwed into. So basically you just move that power supply around, and now you can see with that little small adjustment of pushing upwards, all of the holes are now in place, and then you just need to screw that in. So I'll go do that. Right, so the power supply is now in, it's screwed in, the optical drive is in and screwed in, and the hard drive is in and locked in with the locking tabs. But obviously now we have a lot of cables which are just kind of in the way. Obviously, usually these would be, if you get a new power supply as well, they probably would be modular, so you could just take ones out. But this isn't, as it isn't that new. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move some of these out of the way. I will then tilt you the way up so I can put the motherboard in, and I'll come back to you in a minute. Right, so first things off, I thought I'd say that newer cases also allow you to put micro ATX motherboards in. This is just an ATX case, so the standoffs that are available are already kind of raised, they're like little circles. So first things first, on a normal case, is I would suggest that you find the standoff holes and place the standoffs in, if they're not already in, to coincide with your motherboard. So yeah, as this is already done, what I'm going to do is just make sure that the input output shield just down there has the cover on, which it does, and I'm just going to make sure, obviously I know that it goes in that way because the input output's there and the shield's there, and then I'm just going to slot this in to coincide with the input output shield, as it is doing. Just hang on a minute, it's a bit of a twist to get that in. Right, yeah, so once the IO shield and the padding is all in. All you need to do is just lower it down onto the little holes that we have here situated around, and yeah, just screw down into the standoffs and the motherboard is then mounted. So I'll come back once that's done. Right, so we are back. I've screwed in all of the screws along the side of the motherboard, so now everything is in apart from the aftermarket heatsink fan, which I will do in a second, but that usually gets in the way. So what I plan to do is just do some of the basic wiring, and yeah, then we're all good. So basically, first things first is to find your, I do believe this is a 24 pin motherboard power connector, and this will go into the 24 pin socket, which is just here. Usually these are color coded. As you can see, this is kind of like a white, and the socket is kind of a white as well, and it has a little latch, which means that it has to go down onto the little latch, which is just there. So basically all you need to do for this is just to push it in, and it will kind of click and the latch will stay in place. So that's locked in like that. It doesn't actually make which difference because they're both the same connector, but obviously the only one that actually reaches it is P9 just here. So once again, the furthest socket down here, this one just here, is the connector for this, so it can only go in one way as well because it is slightly curved on sides. I don't know if you can see that, it's slightly curved, so it goes in like that. So I'm just going to go plug that in and get some other cables, and I'll get right back to you. Then this is the secondary power supply, and this just goes in that little 4-pin connector here, and once again, just like the 24 pin, it has a little ridge connector, and that is then just plugged in pretty easily by just pushing down on it. So the next thing to do after pushing that in is to wire it all up, to wire up the hard drive. Sorry, so let me just move that out of the way for a second. And what I tend to do is I tend to plug in the wires and then do a little bit of cable management. So at the moment it looks pretty horrible, but that will all be done neatly in a second or two. So we have the fan power that just goes in this little black plug just down there, so that just needs to be plugged in, and that can only go in one way as well because it has a little ridge technique. This is the power for the optical drive, and this once again can only go in one way as it's slightly lipped, and it goes in the big socket just there. It's not the technical term, big socket, but it will do. So now the only thing left that hasn't got power at the moment is the front USB ports and the light indicators. Now this doesn't directly come from the power from the front USB ports doesn't come from the power supply. It comes from the motherboard that takes power from the power supply, and this is a ribbon cable, old style ribbon cable, that just slots into the slot up the top there. I don't know if you can see that. So I'm going to do that as that requires two hands, and initially all that needs to be done is just slot it inwards. So I'll be back in a second. Alright, so I plugged that in and I just strapped down some of the other cables. These little latches here, and here is the best sort of cable management system this case has, as it really doesn't make a difference what the inside looks like, because the panel, which is situated on the other side of my room, doesn't have a hole in the side of it like most gaming cases do, so it's not like you're ever going to really need to see the inside of the case and shut off any really hardcore hardware, because it isn't a very good case in the first place, and isn't very good hardware inside. So we have two more cables to connect, and then the whole thing is wired up. We have the next ribbon cable, which is this one just here, which is the data for the optical drive to the motherboard, and this goes it's color coded as well. The black socket here goes into the motherboard, and the blue socket here, which is kind of dangling, goes into the optical drive. And this once again can only go in one way, as it has a slight ridge on it, and it just slots in like that. And you can also see the there is a offset hole, or an offset hole there, which means that there isn't one next to it, which means it can also only go in one way, and this is the correct way to go put it in. So this just slots in there, so I'm going to do that. It's pretty simple. And we also have the cable, SATA cable, serial today, for the hard drive, and this also this cable, this one here, the little tab, is into the plugs straight into the hard drive here. Oh, make sure I get it the right way up, probably would help. I didn't look at the actual housing of the there you go, it just slots in, and then this one here just slots into the blue hole just there, and then that just slots in there. So I'm going to come back and wire up all of this and do a little bit more cable management. Right, so as you can see, I did the ribbon cable for the power to the optical drive, and I did the ribbon cable for the data to the hard drive. So all that needs to be fitted now is, we're very close to the end now, is just the bracket which sits just like this in there for the heatsink, and then the heatsink then slots on top of it. So obviously yours, if you don't plan to overclock, then you don't really need a heatsink fan usually, but I would suggest getting some sort of heatsink fan anyway. They usually come with a new processor, as it does get rid of a lot of the heat that the processor does create. Right, so I've turned it up the right way. Everything is now plugged in, everything is now mounted. I've just put in 2 cards, one for an Ethernet port, so you can plug in an Ethernet cable straight from the router, and one for a wireless connector. So I just plug in a little wireless dongle on the outside, and it then connects to the internet, as it doesn't have built-in wireless into the little 2 PCI ports. So now everything is now done, everything's plugged in, and we're all good. So basically all I need to do is plug in some power, put the side panel back in, plug in some peripherals like a monitor or something like that, keyboard, mouse, and then we're all good to go. Obviously, yeah, so cheers for watching this video of how to set up and build a computer, and yeah, bye.